Is anybody other than Phyllis ready to go?
We're ready.
Oh, they'll work it out. We can get started. Oh, kind friends all gathered round. There's something I would say. What brings us together here has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle that holds us all inside, where strangers are as family and loneliness can't hide. So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your heart to tears and laughter and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. I walk these mountains in the rain. I've learned to love the wind. I've been up before the sunrise to watch the day begin. I always knew I'd find you, though I never did know how. But like sunshine on a cloudy day, stand before me now. So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your heart to tears and laughter and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Now love is born in fire. It's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. Love comes when you are ready. Love comes when you're afraid. It'll be your greatest teacher, the best friend you have made. So give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your heart to tears and laughter and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. You must give yourself to love. Give yourself to love.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I love that song. You know, it just feels really good to be here. And I know we're a really small group today. And I don't know. I just okay, this is me getting all like maudlin, mushy. I said, you know, earlier I talked about being fair to Midland instead of fair to maudlin, but I think I'm going a little maudlin at the moment. But, you know, I'm just glad to be here, and I'm glad everyone's here, and I'm excited that Nellie is here. Sorry. So I do want to welcome everybody today, and just encourage everybody to just, you know, be present and join with us. And we have a lot to learn today. Patriciafaye Marshall is with us, and she's going to share with us. I'm also going to take this opportunity to light the Christ candle. And we light the Christ candle just as the reminder of the Christ that lives within us, the Spirit that lives within us, that we see in each and every person that we meet. Every person, regardless of their race, their gender, their cultural background, their socioeconomic status. Every single person that we meet, every human being that we meet has that spark. And this is that reminder as we go through the week to look for that spark. And I didn't set the church on fire.
Always a good thing.
Always a good thing.
Is it insured?
It makes me almost wonder if we should have prayed before I lit the candle, but we did okay. So let's take a moment just to open up in prayer. So go ahead and take a centering breath. We are so thankful to be in this space with each soul that is present. And I am thankful for each one who comes and the part that they are here to play in this service. And we just pray for a blessing on each and every one here. And we pray that divine order will be followed, that we will hear the voice of the Spirit today. And we say thank you. Amen.
Amen.
And John, I guess John has more music for us.
So I did this song a couple of weeks ago as a special music or something, but it fits for a congregational song, so now you're going to all have to learn it and sing with me, but it's There's Only Love. In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love, there is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. Now when I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, and I go inside and quiet my mind, I can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love, there is only love, love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. A love that heals, love that sets us free. There's only love.
Thank you, John. That was a nice choice.
It's beautiful. Terry, will you come share the daily word with us?
This is on healing. The power of divine life restores me to wholeness. John's Gospel tells the story of Jesus' healing encounter at the pool of Bethesda with a man who had been ill for 38 years. People believed that at certain times after an angel stirred the waters of the pool, the first person to enter the water would be healed. When Jesus asked the man if he wanted to be made well, the man explained that he had no one to help him to the pool when the water was stirred up. Hearing Jesus say, "Stand up, take your mat and walk," the man shifted his belief in his limitation and freed himself. His faith in the power of divine life was quickened, and he was restored to wholeness. Like the man at the pool, I let go of all belief in illness. I experienced new vitality. The power of divine life restores me to wholeness. Jesus said to him, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." John 5, verse 8.
Thank you, Terry. So at this time, I would just like to remind everybody about the prayer box. We have a culture of prayer, and we speak to the divine, and so we have an opportunity to let our requests be known. And so in the back of each pew, there are small prayer slips that you may put in the bowl when the bowl comes around, or you may drop in the back in the prayer corner, or bring them up into the box, whatever feels right for you. And at the end of each month, and so today is the last Sunday, at the end of each month, all of our prayer requests that we've prayed over here at Unity by the Sea go back to Silent Unity and are prayed for another 30 days by the staff and guests at Silent Unity. And so that is there. The other thing that is very important with Unity is really the power of affirmation, and really just claiming the things that are right and true and helpful in our lives. And so in your bulletin, and I've already managed to lose my card, but there's a small card with an affirmation on the front and the back, and the affirmation's also printed in the bulletin. But we'll start first with the affirmation for Unity by the Sea, and that's the one with the little flowers by it. And let's speak it all together. Moving forward in love, Unity by the Sea is a joyous expression of Christ. And then for ourselves, moving forward in love, I am a joyous expression of Christ. John?
Got a song.
You have a song for us?
Yeah, in fact, it's interesting. I love the way the universe works, don't you? I didn't know what the word of the day was going to be or anything like that, but it's all about faith, and the song I brought for this is called "The Faith of Man" by Bill Staines. One day a babe was born along the highway, a tiny helpless thing upon the sand, and an Okie with a dream out on the byway took the babe and held it proudly in his hand. And the woman smiled a gentle smile of knowing, whispered something in its ear, perhaps a little prayer to help the growing, perhaps a word of comfort through the fear. And you can trust the moon to move the mighty ocean, you can trust the sun to shine upon the land. You take the little that you know, and you do the best you can. You see the rest through the quiet faith of man. How a tractor makes its way along a fence line. The seeds are dropped precisely in a row. And if the rain is kind and the wind don't take the topsoil, before too long the crops will start to show. Now the farmer sees the fields around him ripen, whispers something low beneath his breath, perhaps a little prayer to help the growing, perhaps a word of thanks for all the rest. You can trust the moon to move the mighty ocean. You can trust the sun to shine upon the land. You take the little that you know and you do the best you can, and you see the rest through the quiet faith of man. There's a storm-tossed ship tonight out on the water. There's a soul that sails alone out on the blue. There's a dreamer with her eyes upon the heavens. They're all looking for a way to make it through. And you can trust the sun to smooth the mighty ocean. You can trust the sun to shine upon the land. You take the little that you know and you do the best you can, and you see the rest through the quiet faith of man. Oh, you see the rest through the quiet faith of man.
Thank you, John. And now we can welcome Patriciafaye.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
I'm so glad to be here. There is a magic in this building, and I feel it. I felt it the first time I was here, and I feel it again today, and I trust that what has brought you and me here today has brought us here in some kind of, it really is some kind of magic. Because our paths, our journeys, if you really tell the truth, we've been on a 14 billion year journey to get here, right here, today, together. That's the age that our scientists have figured out is the age of the universe. 14 billion years. It's kind of hard to even, I mean, that's 9 zeros, right? 14 billion years. So when John emailed me and asked me what I was going to talk about today, I didn't have my title, and so we played around with a couple of things, and then he said he liked this one better, so the title of my talk is "The Stars Lead Us to Wonder." And when I say the word wonder, there's two ways that you can think about wonder. You can think about it as a noun, you know, the wonder of it all, the awe, the beauty, the mystery, the majesty. Wow. Or you can, I wonder as a verb. So as we blend our energies together today, as you extend your minds to receive whatever I may say, I prayed this morning, you know, and I've got a whole bunch of pages here and talks from other people, but I'm willing to abandon it all if something else wants to come through. And so I feel like we're in a dance together, that your receptivity and my deliverance are in a dance. And I have prayed to open myself to say the words that you receive, and that you receive in a way that you're inspired to be the most that you can be, and to feel the most love. We exist among the shattered shards of scattered stars, and we sing opera. We've come a long way. Do you remember where you were on July 20th, 1969?
Not here.
Does anybody remember the significance of that day? It was a day that our worldview, our view of the universe, actually shifted in a very big way, because it was the first time that a human being had seen the Earth from space. So we're about to celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the first moonwalk. And I don't know about you, but I remember those early photographs. That was, I think it was Edgar Mitchell was sitting inside the spacecraft, and he looked out the window and he saw this little ball out there, this little sphere, and there was this realization that that was the Earth, that was it. And there was one photograph where he put his thumb up like this, and his whole thumbnail covered it. That image changed us. Instead of living on a hard rock where we're separate from everything and each other, there was this earth that he could cover with his thumbnail, and on that earth was all the love, everything that we loved, everything that we knew, our lives, everything that we honored, and all the wars, and all the pain, and all the suffering. I went out and bought a flag that had that photograph on it and flew it off my deck. I never flew another flag off my deck. I couldn't imagine that we would carve this place up into countries and boundaries and ideologies and religions and separate us all from one another. We're in a place today where we're poised for another kind of a transformation like that. A transformation from being all divided up, us and them, separate from the natural world, separate from the forest, separate from the rivers, separate from the soil. We're headed for a transformation, a revolutionary transformation of the heart, where we come to know how interconnected we all are. There was another time I was reading about Copernicus. He lived back in the 1500s, and he was the fellow who, up until that time, I mean, most of our knowledge that we have is so new, so new. I mean, think of this moonshot was in 1969. That's 50 years ago. We had no idea. We did not experience this kind of worldview before that. Before Copernicus's time, the whole world thought that the earth was at the center of the universe, that the sun and the moon and all the heavenly bodies revolved around the earth, that we were at the center. The earth was at the center. And it was around 1530 when he put out the theory that no, that wasn't the way it was. The sun, indeed, was the center of the universe. Of course, we're way beyond that now, but in those days, that was revolutionary. That was like unheard of. Nobody wanted to hear that. It was counterintuitive. It wasn't what had been taught for eons. Now, well, we'll get to that. Let's see. I want to talk to you about a man named Brian Swimme. Brian Swimme is a professor at the California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco. He's a wizard of a man. He has a big shock of gray hair. He's in his early 70s now, like I think some of us are. But he is a cosmologist. He loves to talk about evolutionary cosmology. So when you talk about cosmology, you're talking about the universe. You're talking about all of it, the galaxies, all of it, from the moment of the Big Bang forward. He actually wrote a book called The Universe Story. But he has developed a program, and I'm so grateful to people like this man. You know, in our schools today, they're devoid. If you go to elementary school, I don't know, maybe you're more enlightened out here on the coast. But in McMinnville, I don't care if you go to an elementary school, a middle school, a high school, you know, they are not teaching our children the story of the universe. That is not being taught. Kids today in schools are still being taught that we're separate, that everything is separate, that we're this, you know, that we look out on the world and we see a series of objects that are clearly not us. Right? So Brian Swimme, at the level of graduate school, has developed this program that he calls Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness. And he's got a master's program and a graduate program where the purpose of his program is to reimagine the human species, to reimagine us as a mutually enhancing member of the Earth community. Imagine that. Not someone who's here to dominate. You know, I think they misinterpreted that thing in the Bible when they talked about man dominating the animals and the fish and the birds and all of that. That was a linguistic misinterpretation. That word, it's been argued, should have been stewardship. That we're put on the earth to be the stewards. And what is a steward? It's a caretaker, right? Someone who takes care, not someone who dominates, who controls, who uses the resources and depletes them, but a loving caregiver, someone who cares for the soil and the rivers and the forests and the oceans. Someone who cares. The main goals, I love his goals. The goals of his program, the first one is to open our consciousness. So his students, I mean, he's teaching all these people that are going to come out of this program to be the leaders of our future, to bring us into this time of revolutionary thinking where we're shifting our thinking from being this dominant species to being a species of people who cooperate and who participate with the natural world. So we ask questions like, what does the soil need? You know, and then we listen. And we ask, what are the rivers? What are the fish? What are the salmon? I mean, what are the forests? What do they need? And we listen. All of this stuff that we see that we think is out there is intelligent. It's conscious. There's consciousness and intelligence everywhere. Human beings don't have the edge on that. Our dogs are conscious, for goodness sakes. Right? Very. And so, the first goal, he says, is to open our consciousness to those creative and evolutionary energies that are already spread throughout the earth, that are already deep within our own psyches. And these energies will enable us to participate fully in the regeneration of human communities. So, Marcy and I were talking just before about prayer and the power of prayer. Well, for me, when I remember to pray is a time when I am remembering that I may need to recenter myself. And it's not that it was missing. It's not that knowing of this power, it's not that it wasn't there, it's that I forgot. And so, to bring ourselves into a place of contemplation, call it meditation, call it prayer, it doesn't matter what we call it. We sing about this spark we have in us. We all have this knowing, this place of peace, this place of being centered in the truth of our being. We all have it. And so when we bring ourselves into that place and ask, trusting that our prayer or our question or our problem will be addressed, it is, but it's not like it wasn't there before we asked. It's always there waiting for us, right? It's waiting for us. If we could just slow down enough. So these energies that Brian talks about as his first goal, the energies of the universe, the intelligence of the universe, is just waiting for us to ask. It's there already. And these are our allies. This is what we have to work with. We have the power of this whole 14 billion year trajectory behind us, that we have come to this place of consciousness where we know ourselves, and we know ourselves to know ourselves. We know that we're aware. We're aware of our awareness. We're the first creatures that have ever been able to experience that. Okay, the second goal. The second goal is to analyze the current devastation of planetary life and strive to free ourselves and our communities from the underlying causes of alienation, separation, consumerism, militarism, and all the ways that life is unsustainable. We all realize that we're on the brink of this. And we're in different places about it. You know, some of us would rather pretend. I sometimes would rather pretend that it isn't happening, that it isn't really true. Some of us are grieving over the losses that are already there, the losses in the species, the losses in our oceans. And I was just reading that they found all these mollusks on the beach in California this last week because of the heat wave down there, with their shells open and they're already cooked. They're already cooked. The mollusks are like mussels, not mollusk, mussels. The mussels, I'm sorry. And they're like the canary in the coal mine, you know, they're giving us the message. You know, we have lots and lots of messages in the natural world right now. So the second goal is to help us to analyze all of that and see what the underlying causes are of this kind of devastation. And the third goal in his program is to draw from the deep wells of philosophical and religious wisdom together with other scholarly insights in order to bring forth a profound vision of a vibrant planetary era. Aren't you glad somebody's doing that? We are now recognizing that humanity is facing an unprecedented evolutionary challenge. It's the most severe degradation of life in the last 65 million years. Do you know what happened 65 million years ago? That's another milepost. Do you know? Does anybody know? 65 million years ago, that was when Exactly. That's when they say a meteor hit the planet. I don't know if they ever found the crater, but that caused enough devastation for the extinction of the dinosaurs. But you know how every time in our history anything has ever happened like that, it's like there's a reorganization of all of life. So there was some little mammal left. I mean, maybe it was a mouse, I don't know. But from that, everything that's here now has sprung. It's amazing. The stars lead to wonder. Brian Swimm's main teacher was a man named Thomas Berry. You've heard of Thomas Berry? Thomas Berry was a Catholic priest. He called himself a geologian. He was a philosopher, an author. He wrote a book called The Great Work. He says that this work that we're doing, this work to transform our worldview, is the greatest work of humanity. The Buddhist teacher Joanna Macy calls it the Great Turning. Some have referred to it as the Great Unraveling, the Deep Descent. And we have to tell a story. Humans need a story. I mean, if you're a butterfly or a whale or a wolf, you probably don't need a story. It's in your DNA. But humans tell stories to make sense of what's happening in the world. Our stories give us meaning and direction. We're in between stories right now. We've surpassed the level of knowledge where we considered the earth as a resource, where we dominated it and controlled it, and we're moving into an era of participation. We can now begin to live in a way that expresses our coherent knowledge of the universe that we've obtained over the last few decades. So I'm going to give you some of this knowledge. There's some numbers here, and they're huge numbers, so just allow them to seep in. There are 300 billion stars like our sun in the Milky Way galaxy. We were talking about Copernicus a while ago and how he discovered what he thought was that the sun was at the center of everything and that everything else was around the sun. Well, since that time, we now know that there are 300 billion stars like our sun in the Milky Way galaxy, and that there are 2 trillion galaxies. Now, Hubble, this was in the 1920s when the Hubble telescope and all of those discoveries came out. It wasn't until 1920 that we knew that there was more than the Milky Way galaxy. Now we know there's 2 trillion of them. And that this whole thing is expanding. It's still expanding. It's been expanding since the Big Bang. It never stopped expanding. So the farthest galaxies are still moving out. It's still expanding. And you know what? It's expanding at this rate that supports life. So it's in this balance. The expansion, the explosions, the expansion out is in a dance with the gravity that is pulling it back in, which is the perfect balance for life. If it was a bit tiny, infinitesimal bit faster or slower, it would either, the whole thing would explode or collapse. We are loved. The universe knew what it was doing from the very beginning. It was setting itself up for us, because that's what's here now, is us. Some more numbers. Oh, I'm going to tell you a little bit about galaxies. There are 2 kinds of galaxies. There's an elliptical galaxy, which is kind of like a circle. And then there's spiral galaxies. Guess which one our Milky Way is? It's the spiral. It's the spiral galaxy. And the difference in those 2 galaxies is that in the elliptical galaxy, the stars don't recreate themselves. They don't regenerate. When they're born, they have a life, and they die. So in the elliptical galaxies that we still have in our universe, when all the stars that are in those elliptical galaxies are done, those galaxies are gone. They're done. We don't live in one of those. We live in a spiral galaxy where the stars regenerate themselves over and over and over forever. Forever, like life. Forever. So that's something to celebrate. Our sun is 1,000,000 times bigger than the earth. There's a star, there's a sun, I guess we should call it a sun, called YV Canis Majoris. And it would take 9 billion of our suns to fill it up. And it's also in the Milky Way galaxy. In this vastness, the earth has disappeared. We become an infinitesimal speck. So just allow yourself to take in the vastness of this universe. 14 billion years ago, all this vastness was contained inside a tiny point. A tiny point. It was all inside a tiny little point. With so much pressure and so much heat, and suddenly the great flaring forth, the Big Bang, hydrogen and helium fusing to give birth to carbon, phosphorus, oxygen, and all the other elements. 14 billion years ago, and still expanding at exactly the right speed for life. We are inside this ongoing, developing reality. From the beginning, the universe knew what it was about. The star's explosion enables life to emerge. The universe knew life was coming. We now know when we look at the stars that they gave birth to us. I was born and raised in Mississippi by very rural, uneducated parents. But somehow my daddy knew. I would lay down on a quilt in the front yard with him on summer nights, and it was dark out there. We lived way out in the country. And he would point up to the stars and he would say, "Your mama will tell you we got you from under a bug stump, but you came from the stars." So I grew up hearing that, but I didn't hear it in school. I didn't hear it really until probably 20 years ago, when I started trying to figure out who I was and what this was all about. Ran across Brian Swim, and now, it's such a majestic, amazing, awesome inquiry to consider that the very carbon in our bodies and in every life form that we see here now came from the stars. Hemoglobin, iron in our hearts. There's a molecule of hemoglobin that causes the oxygen to be pumped through the heart. That's iron. That iron came from the stars. You want to know if we're connected. If you have a heartbeat, you're connected to everything that has a heartbeat. The stars are our ancestors. We are participants in a vast living organisms. The stars lead us to wonder. The age of the earth is 4.5 billion years. 4.5 billion years, the age of the earth. So it took a while. From 14 billion years of the great flaring until the earth came into existence, took a while. And our earth is a sentient, intelligent being within this regenerative process, attuning herself to the sun, basking in the light of the sun to make food for life. It was a while still until photosynthesis came into being. The first land plants 470 million years ago. And then the animals came along 410 million years ago. These were land animals and land plants. Our first human ancestors appeared between 5 and 7 million years ago. And those that anatomically look like Homo sapiens came on the scene about 130,000 years ago. The debate over the origins of modern human culture is far from resolved. A little wisdom from Thomas Berry. He says that the great work calls for the transformation of our Western industrial institutions of religion, education, governance, and politics, and that we are moving from an human-centered point of view to a earth-centered understanding of our role and responsibilities. This shift, this transformational shift from human-centered to earth-centered is essential if we're going to survive. If we're going to survive, we have to start knowing that we are related to the natural world. Thomas called this way of living in right relation with the planet Earth jurisprudence. And he's not using jurisprudence as a term that's so narrowly just talking about the law. It's about how we live and govern our lives, particularly in relation to nature. Our legal system that is being used today is being used to legitimize the destruction of nature and the violation of human and other species' rights, all in the interest of economic elites and the drive for endless growth on a finite planet. Indigenous societies can offer inspiration for understanding what Earth jurisprudence means in practice. An indigenous leader from Brazil said, "We hold the memory of what it means to be human. Even if we had all the white people's technology and money, we would be worth nothing if we didn't hold the memory of the creation of the planet." But there is an awakening going on. The emergence of the Extinction Rebellion in England, the school climate strikes, and rights of nature precedents from Uganda to New Zealand and to Ecuador and even to our own Lake Erie recently achieved the rights of nature. The right for the lake to thrive and exist beyond the runoff of the poisons from the factory farms. People of all ages and walks of life are willing to take action to call the alert to break through the silence of our media-dominated world and demand better for nature. Further, future generations of all species and those on the front lines of climate breakdown, which there's all the environmental injustice. People who live in poverty, the poorest people in the world who live on the margins of survival or not, are being affected first by the changes. A more generous, earth-centered consciousness is emerging, recognizing the connection between all of us. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk, talks about interbeing, not just interconnection, but I like the way he says the word into-be. We must into-be. Into-being means that we have our being wrapped up in the being of everything else. We were saying earlier today that you can't really talk about something without talking about everything, because it's really all one thing. It's like you pull one thread and the whole thing starts to unravel. Into be. We must into be. We must know we into be. And we have to start practicing this. I mean, whether we plant a window box or a victory garden, or we start a compost pile, or we plant a flower or a tree, or we go clean up the beach, or we pick up some trash. These are practices that we can do to bring our attention back to the fact that we are one with the natural world. We are one with all of this. And you know what? Whether anybody sees you do it doesn't make any difference. Somebody told me once that integrity was what you do when nobody's looking. You know, but the joy that comes from the practice of practicing being one with that flower, one with that tomato plant, one with those worms in your compost bin. It's a practice of bringing us back into the oneness, back into the into being with all of life. The stars lead us to wonder. Julia Butterfly Hill, you know who she was? Julia Butterfly Hill, Trust, don't you know who she was? She was the woman who sat in that redwood tree in California back in the late 90s. They were logging these old-growth redwoods, and they were on a hillside, and there were mudslides, and the slides were coming down onto houses below, you know, meant some people were actually killed. Julia Butterfly Hill went up into this, 200-foot tall, 1,000-year-old redwood tree, And she lived up there for over 2 years, daring the loggers to cut down another tree. What one person can do. And Julia Butterfly Hill, and I have this little saying on my sliding glass door, it says, you cannot have peace on earth until you have peace with the earth. The stars lead us to wonder. The universe, by definition, is a single, gorgeous, celebratory event. Thomas Berry said that. He says that our entire education system can be seen as enabling the student to understand this immense story of this 14 billion year trajectory. That's what we have to teach our kids. That's what we have to teach them, and to teach them that they have come from this. And here we are. And it is our job now. I mean, one of the lines in the song that John was singing, "Love is born of fire," I was like, yeah, that's like it was born in the Big Bang, in the flaring forth. Love was born there. And that's who we are. We come out of that. And that's the main thing we have to teach our kids. That's what Thomas Berry says. The basic mood of the future might well be one of confidence in the continuing revelation that takes place in and through the earth. So consider this. If the dynamics of the universe from the beginning shaped the course of the heavens, lighted the sun, formed the earth, if this same dynamism brought forth the continents and seas and atmosphere, if it awakened life in the primordial cell and then brought into being the unnumbered variety of living beings and finally brought us into being and guided us safely through the turbulent centuries, there is reason to believe that this same guiding process is precisely what has awakened in us our present understanding of ourselves and our relation to this stupendous process. So yes, we can have confidence in the future that awaits our human venture. Everything has a right to be recognized and revered. Trees have trees' rights. Insects have insects' rights. Rivers have river rights. And mountains have mountain rights. We can no longer hear the voice of the rivers, the mountains, or the sea. The trees and meadows are no longer intimate modes of spirit presence. The world about us has become an it rather than a thou. The naive assumption that the natural world is here to be possessed and used by humans for their advantage and in an unlimited manner cannot be accepted. Our sense of who we are and what our role is must begin where the universe begins. As we enter the 21st century, we are experiencing a moment of grace. Such moments are privileged moments. The great transformations of the universe occur at such times. In the very first instant when the primitive particles rushed forth, every one of them was connected to every other one in the entire universe. At no time in the future existence of the universe would they ever arrive at a point of disconnection. Nothing is itself without everything else. We come into being in and through the earth. Simply put, we are earthlings. The earth is our origin, our nourishment, our educator, our healer, our fulfillment. We need a spirituality that emerges out of a reality deeper than ourselves, a spirituality that is so deep as the earth process itself, a spirituality born out of the solar system and even out of the heavens beyond the solar system. For it is in the stars that the primordial elements take shape in both their physical and psychic aspects. Out of these elements, the solar systems and Earth took shape, and out of Earth, ourselves. So everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. You know that song? The stars lead us to wonder. May it be so.
Thank you, Patriciafaye. You're welcome. My brain was firing lots of little thoughts, and so as I think about us kind of moving into this time of offering and sharing, and I was thinking about spirit is a spirit of constancy, a spirit of change, a spirit of creation, a spirit of power, and that spirit of connection. We spoke about that earlier, about the connection between each of us, and then Patriciafaye reminded us of that spirit of connection that's in all things, and I kind of have goosebumps. So as we move into this time, what I'd like you to do is take your offering and hold it in your hands, or hold your hands over your heart. In your bulletin, we have a affirmation that we share, and we'll read that all together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you.
So we got a little wisdom for you from that great 20th century philosopher Roger Miller this morning. Oh, walking in the sunshine, sing a little sunshine song. Put a smile upon your face as though there's nothing wrong. Think about a good time had a long time ago. Think about forgetting about your worries and your woes. Walking in the sunshine, sing a little sunshine song. La 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 dee oh, oh, whether the weather be rain or snow, pretending can make it real. A snowy pasture, a green and grassy field. Walking in the sunshine, sing a little sunshine song. Put a smile upon your face as if there's nothing wrong. Think about a good time had a long time ago. Think about forgetting about your worries and your woes. Walking in the sunshine, sing a little sunshine. Walking in the sunshine, sing a little sunshine. Walking in the sunshine, sing a little sunshine song.
Very good.
There it is.
One of my favorites.
So we just want to take a moment to pray for the gifts that we've received. And again, I'm so grateful for the blessing of Spirit on this community and the indwelling of the Spirit in each and every one of us, and knowing that the gifts that are received here are used to feed and nurture each one that walks through the doors so that they might go out into this world and feed and nurture and love those that they come in contact with and every piece of this planet. And we just, together we say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen. And now we get to my favorite part. We're gonna, see, I did this again, right?
It's all right. I'm on it.
I am thankful for my
Good morning.
read our unity.
Please join me in reading our statement for peace on the little brown paper in your bulletin. Unity stands for peace in the presence of conflict, for love in the presence of hatred, for forgiveness in the presence of injury. Unity honors the many names for God, the many paths to God, the many ways to worship God. For there is only one power and presence of God, and that God loves each of us equally. It is therefore the position of unity to urge all nations, their leaders and their people, to turn to God by whatever the name for guidance during these challenging times, and to pursue peace, not war, for this is what honors the of all our faith traditions. Unity stands for peace in our lifetime.
Yes.
The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. And they shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord. I will not be the part of the killing of any child, no matter how lofty the reason. Not my neighbor's child, not my child, not my enemy's child. Not by bomb, not by bullet, not by looking the other way. I will be the power that is peace.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike. Now we'll gather in a circle.
Circle the wagons.
Circulation. You can sit there now. You don't have to be standing up. We've earned your places, it's you.
This is elliptical.
Uh-oh. We need, wait, I need like to make it a spiral. I was saying this is going to spiral. I love spirals, so. As we prepare to close, we just want to take a moment. If there's any names of anybody that you're praying for and thinking about that you want to put in a circle, you may speak their name out loud or you may speak it silently. Spirit will hear. If there's any, just feel free to speak it. I have to bring up our little new baby, Lucas. Ryan McLaughlin. 9 pounds, 1 ounce, 22 inches. Born yesterday afternoon. He's my second great grandchild. Yes, beautiful.
My grandson, most of you know my grandson, and he goes into surgery next Tuesday. A week from next Tuesday, yeah.
Sam. Cheryl and Tom.
All my kids. Leona Hicks. All kids who are inheriting her. John, Dad. John. Brooke.
So as we gather, we hold all of these names in our heart, and we carry them with us, and we pray for each and every one.
Divine order of heaven. Thank you. Sorry, there are many things going on in my head today, so I'm trying to keep the order. So let's sing our peace song.
I'll do Thursdays, help you on the 4th of July.
That was meant to be with God as creator, and we all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And let us end with our prayer for protection. The words are on the board right behind John. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Okay, we'll get those to you where you go. Somewhere up the good prayers that she mails out. Nice job. That's a good distinction, isn't it? You want to do it when you're, you don't want to do
I got these ones, I haven't got the ones in the back yet.
Size 2. Oh.
Make my stuff. Do you come every Sunday? I'm Jan's daughter.
Is there John? We were church
There probably is.
Yes. I know, I was gonna try to get a little picture. There's 30 different churches. Yes, they do. They do.
Kind of prompt, you know.
wish there was a movie. My friend I'm sure there's one in Portland.
I think my dad was quite quiet, and sometimes Mama would say, "Why don't you ever say anything?" He said, "I'm still thinking about the last thing you said."
So we say, can't get a word in.
Do you know, and I know in Oregon, Kansas City Stars?
Oh, I've sung it.
I can sing that. I know, I love to sing that song. I sometimes sing it in like talent shows. It's my favorite song I sing is somebody says, "Sing, Patricia." And we get back and
We,
sing.
I have a band I play with, and it's, but the other guy in the band is one that sings the lead in that. So I kind of get a little bit of the chorus of it, and stuff with them.
I love Roger
But yeah, it's a cool song.
That's good. You sang that for me.
But anyway.
My backup protest today.
I will. I put that in my head because I try to look at it. Sorry. No, I'm pretty good.